Well, hello and welcome to ILoveGay today. And we are here. This is like a blast from the past. And we are with someone that I think I've known for well over 20 years, if more.
Or
David Stern from Los Angeles, Palm Springs area. How are you?
I'm great. Good to see you, my friend.
Same here. Actually, I was going to say because I've always our story, and as we're talking, you've been such an anchor in the LGBTQ media world for so many years in Los Angeles that it's hard to envision you living anywhere else. But you've been in Palm Springs for a little while now.
A little over 9 years. A little over
Wow.
9 years.
Yeah, nice. And it was great to see you there when we were there for the IGLTA convention. So when the entire LGBT travel world descended upon Palm Springs, you were there.
You know what? That was such a fun night. That night I was there, it was a combo. It was the Gay and Lesbian Center out here's Mixer along with the travel convention. And I think I mentioned to you, I kind of left the scene of all of this 10 years ago. So that was like my first like, oh well, I'm gonna go social, be social. It was great. It was so fun to see everybody.
No, it was great to have you there. And what we're going to talk about, you've written a new book, Elevator Boy, and I like the tagline, an otherworldly memoir. And we're going to talk about that. But first, just kind of even jumping kind of in the middle of your story, which is how you and I had met, 20 some odd years ago or so. But it's because you've really touched on, especially even reading some of your more recent background info. There were things I didn't even know, but I mean, you've been with Edge magazine, Publisher Frontiers, and then and creating in Los Angeles magazine. But all of these were like some of the key major LGBT publications and media for that entire period of time. Those that especially when I was coming of age there in Los Angeles.
I talk about that, there was a period before social media and
Yeah.
all of this stuff where print media thrived. And I think I said in the beginning of the book, and I don't take credit for this, this goes back before me in the beginning in the early 80s when Bob Craig and his business partners created Frontiers. That was because mainstream media was not covering this emerging epidemic
Yeah.
of AIDS, and they didn't even have a name back then. And Frontiers was born out of that need for activism and the need to communicate and provide a resource so that our community had information that it
Yeah.
was not getting.
Yeah. Well, especially in today's world, I
Don't
mean,
get
I
on my
think
pedestal this early in the day.
I'm just going to say, I think in today's world, I think folks will understand, at least by the end of this interview, that you coming out with this book is the timeliness is because a lot of us thought so much of the work has been done, that it's all in the past, and that we're all moving onward and forward and skipping along, and life is grand. But we're constantly reminded over the last few years that it's not that way, and we still have quite a number of fights to fight here in when it comes to the LGBT community and our rights.
It's really, really true. And I think that people have asked me this in other interviews, so I'll just skip it and skip to get to the point.
Yeah.
Why I wrote this book now was it was 10 years of since I left all of this and I turned 65. But the bigger thing is anybody that's paying attention to what's going on in the country, like they're trying to erase us, they're trying to turn back our rights.
Yeah.
And I think if ever there was a time to remind people of how this community organized in the day, it's now because the young people need to know this.
Yeah.
I'm 65 years old. It's the generations behind me that need to pick up the mantle here.
I think more and more they're paying attention too. And so what's great about your book is that you go into your, how you kind of got started in life and, coming from St. Louis, Missouri and moving to LA and being a runaway and so forth. But that was a big part of your book that a lot of folks, including myself, yeah, I may have felt like I knew you, but, through that book, we really get to know you and who you really are in a way that, you really dug deep.
Thank you. Where do I start with that? Because there wasn't really a question in there, but I will say that this was like a 10-year writing process, and I will say that it was in phases.
Yeah.
And actually that first chapter goes as far back as 2001 when I was in John Ritchie's writing class. But the bulk of the book was started 10 years ago, and It was called The Way of the Stray for a
Hmm.
really long time. That was my working title. And it's a way long story, but in February of this year, my friend was pushing me as to why I ran away. And I didn't have, no matter what answer I gave for him, it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And this is a weird story, but somewhere on the 10 freeway between Los Angeles and Palm Springs, driving home, I get very centered in the car with my hubby. It's just that quiet time. And all of a sudden, this little light bulb goes off, and I'm like, I've written the phrase, I don't want to be elevator boy, all over the earlier manuscript of this book, and never asked myself why I wrote that phrase. Like,
Okay.
what does that even mean? Why am I
Yeah.
writing that? And without doing a big spoiler alert, in the earlier part of the earlier versions of this book, because this is real life for me, there was a scene, an occurrence that happened where I ran out of school and I was in front of my dad's grave, and 3 or 4 hours go by, and my next memory is that my mom came and got me. Well, what happened on the 10 freeway at 64 years old was that memory of that barely 16-year-old kid
Yeah.
came back. That 3 hours that I've written about for, it's not that I've written about it, I've never written about it. I've always written, I went to the cemetery and hours went by. I've never had a recollection of that memory.
Yeah.
And when that memory came back, that's Elevator Boy. That was me refusing to be the kid who everybody pitied because my dad fell down an elevator shaft. And honestly, Elevator Boy was the darkest. I hated it. Like,
Yeah.
I did not want to be Elevator Boy. So where I'm going in this long-winded ramble is that what I learned by leaning into this shadow self that retained memories that the core of me did not, was that as I wrote this, that here's my big tagline: what hides in the shadows thrives in the light. And I
Yeah.
put a spotlight on the darkest day of my entire life. And my dad is right here. And it's just been beautiful.
Yeah. It
And
sounds
now
like,
I'll cry.
but it also sounds like you didn't want that to define you, as elevator boy, you did not want to, to be defined as elevator boy. You had so much more to offer.
No, I refuse to be defined as elevator boy. That's why I ran away. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I say somewhere in the first chapter of the book, ending up on the streets in Hollywood at 16 years old, I might have been a homeless runaway, but I was an elevator boy.
Yeah. But that's also one of your motivations that I've understood from writing this book now is that just to be able to give insights and hope to a lot of the LGBTQ folks that are runaways today. And because again, we're dealing with things that we thought maybe we put behind us and we definitely have not.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, because that was a huge motivating factor. And I think I mentioned this to you earlier, is that when I was writing the earlier parts of this book and doing just some research online, the rate of homelessness was 120% higher in the 70s than for eight. Let me get this right: 18 to 24 year olds, the rate of homelessness is 120% high for LGBTQ people than their heterosexual peers.
Hmm.
That was in the 70s. It's the same today.
Yeah.
So we talk about gay rights and gay marriage and all this progress we've made, but the level of homelessness and the level of suicide rates are
Yeah.
the same. So we have a lot of work to do. And I don't know, I wish I knew what those answers were, but I think it starts with the awareness that that
Yeah.
number has not changed.
Yeah. It does. And especially though, like everything you've dealt with and what you do bring to the forefront to, like I said, to kind of who and where you're at today, but also you were HIV, or found out you were HIV positive at 27. And so you've had a lot of hurdles thrown at you.
I guess so. Yeah.
They didn't think you were going to make it. What did they do? Tell you you had 6 months to a year and don't plan any
I
further?
was 27 years old. I just got my job at Edge Magazine. I was
Yeah.
sober maybe 6 months or something, like going, oh my God, I got this whole leaf on life, and leaf on life, look, this whole new lease on life.
Yeah.
And then you get that diagnosis. And back in the day, um, yeah, it was like see a grief counselor, and they were like, you got 6 months to a year to live.
Yeah.
And my favorite line, one of my favorite lines in the book is nobody puts a toe tag on David Stern. They were like, you want to make out your will and stuff? And I was like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to, think you got to think positive for that. And especially, you said you've been undetectable for an incredibly long time as well. And I take it you probably were able to get on the right medications at the right time.
I think that part of it was that I didn't get on medications for a long time. And I was a firm believer that this is just me. I'm not
Yeah.
speaking for anybody else.
Yep.
But when AZT came out and my research, I'm like, this is a failed drug for cancer. Way back in the day, they never released it. Why are they putting this out now? And pretty much, I almost everybody I know that did single AZD therapy died, and it just didn't make sense to me. So I became just a big freaky. If it was green and leafy, it went in my juicer, and I got way into exercise and just
Yeah. Yeah.
the triple combo came out in '96, and when that came out, where it was cutting the HIV in three different parts of the DNA chain, that made sense to me. So I
Yeah.
think the fact that I waited almost 10 years of being positive before I did any drugs, I think that was probably one of the things that saved my life.
Yeah. That's incredible. But yeah, the
It was
just
such a heavy topic.
no, I know, I know. And we condense it down into this short form video podcast. And so, but on the business side, when I came to know you, and that's where you've always kind of represented for me all things frontiers. But you came from being the kind of the lead salespeople at Edge, and I loved and I will just tell folks you've got a great amount of background in a video that I will link from this wherever I post it, which is on LGBTQ archives. I think that interview you did with them was incredible because you get into some real detail in terms of going from Edge to Frontiers as publisher and all the background of how of what was going on all those years, and then when you had in Los Angeles magazine, and so but yeah, you went from Edge in Los Angeles, Frontiers, and that's how I think most people know you that today because it was such a huge part of the LA LGBTQ scene.
We were so young.
We were.
We were so young. Edge magazine, honestly, it was what a magical time that was in the I said it earlier, it was like at the best of times and the worst of times. You're going to memorial services every weekend, but you're just young and I don't know. I'd hardly say innocent, but I think that youth factor just I had such fire. I still have a lot of fire in my belly, but
Yeah.
back then I had such fire in my belly. It was like you tell me I'm gonna die, I'm just like, hey, fuck you.
Yeah, it fascinates me though, and when I say this, I will actually say, don't take this the wrong way because I have to deal with this as well. But it's interesting. When I was in Palm Springs with you, that same day, I was talking to someone else about you, and I was talking about Edge, and I was really shocked. This person was like in their 40s, I think, and I had to explain what Edge was. They
Oh
knew
yeah,
Front,
to a 40-year old, definitely,
yeah, but they
definitely.
knew they knew Frontiers though. They knew Frontiers, but they did not know Edge, and I was trying to explain that you know, to me, it was such a, I was shocked that they didn't even know what Edge was because I guess it just kind of they aged out from that.
Well, because Edge folded in 2000, I think.
Yeah.
I talk about this in my book. There's weird little cycles in my life. So it was at a we were at press with our 2 year anniversary. Rupert Murdoch was on the cover. It was a Best of Gay LA. This is all in the book. So they went out of business when we were at press with our 2 year anniversary. So
Yeah.
if you were in your 40s, you probably would not remember that.
Yeah, no, I was surprised, but then I was thinking because I was also reading. I'm also going to link the interview that Alexander Rodriguez did with you because I thought he did from L.A. Blade. He did a great job. But one of the things you guys were touching on, you guys were talking about your thoughts on media today, and especially because you went from print and then you were kind of helping to pioneer, bringing a lot of that print to online. And I don't know, just a general question is just, what are your thoughts on LGBTQ media today?
I'll give you the same answer I gave him in the interview.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of thought on LGBTQ media today. I have thoughts on the overall overarching, the big arc of media today, and LGBTQ falls into it. Um, if I had a wish
Yeah.
for what LGBTQ media could be today, that's a different question. And my wish would be that everybody gets back to their roots. And I say this ad nauseum, the way we receive information, whether it's and let's go to young people, because I think I
Yeah.
said in the article with the blade, it's like stop thinking that Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram are news sources. And it all comes down to that vetted journalist, reporter on the ground that we actually trust because they've established trust with
Yeah.
the way they report. I think if we can get back to that, and people, there's so much information that comes at us so quickly. So it's just how do you get the readership that needs to see this tapped into the audiences, I think is the bigger question, because the resources are vital. And I really think if we're rolling the clock in a big full circle moment as to where we are now, and think about where we were in a time before me when these publications were actually formed and why they were formed, so that we had resources and trusted people that are getting us information.
Yeah.
We live in such a tower of Babel these days with what's out there. I hope that we can find a way back to having all these existing places
Yeah.
be valuable resources.
Yeah. And then we always have to hope that folks young and old are able to kind of use that use their brain, their minds, their brains, their critical thinking, and just be able to absorb all this stuff and be able to figure out for themselves, but what's not only relevant to them, but what is real, or what stories maybe aren't quite as accurate as they would want it to be. And I think I think we have that, but I think there's also a big gap where I think there's a we could use a lot more, use a lot more critical thinking.
I think the whole thing is what lies beneath the soundbite.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where the meat of things are. And I don't
Absolutely.
know if that answered your question, but
No,
I
no,
sure went on a tangent.
no, there was no trick questions and no specific answer I was looking for in that sense because, like I said, you've been there are anchors out here. It was Frontiers, the Washington Blade, LA Blade, Dallas Voice, and so forth, and you were a big part of that for such a long period of time. And so that's why I think
Philadelphia
it's
Gay News, he's still going very, very strong.
oh yeah, and that's why I think it's great that you've come out with this book that not only allows people to get to know you, but then also gets to understand quite a bit more about that LGBT media world from that Los Angeles perspective, from somebody that was right there at the front lines.
It's been a fun ride.
Yes,
It's
no,
been a
like
fun
I said.
ride, that's for sure.
So, like I said, I'm going to make sure I have links when we post this to not only where they can find your book, but also some of your other interviews, your social media, and so forth, so that people can connect with you and learn more from whatever touch points excites them the most.
Can I give you a couple of plugs real quick? So
Absolutely.
if you post that LGBTQ Archives Growing Up Gay series where you said you are, so
Yep.
it's like a 30-minute interview, and I will say that he, like I already mentioned this, he did a good job of telling my story without wrecking what's in the book. But he also did something super unbelievably cool. And at about the 27-ish minute mark, he wrote a song, his lyrics, because he told me he was going to do this. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, I write songs, I'll give you the lyrics. He was like, no, you won't. It's my signature on your video. And and he wrote a song and made a music video about my entire life. And it's at
Wow.
about the 27-minute mark. And I will tell you, I don't even know how to put into words how touched I was and honored, and how fucking weird it is, excuse my language, how unbelievably weird it is to stick this thing on YouTube and see a
Yeah.
music video about my life called Elevator Boy. It was just like, I'm like, me and my husband are like in the twilight zone here watching this stuff.
Wow. Wow. Well, yep. No, I'll make sure we will make sure that is linked in there. And mostly, I'm just. Oh, did you have
Oh,
it?
and my other plug is
Yeah.
Book Baby. The book is on Amazon. Sorry to interrupt you, sir. The book is on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles, but Amazon has got this funky algorithm thing going, and it shows out of stock, and then it's not, and blah blah blah.
Uh,
Book Baby, store.bookbaby.com. Type in my title, and it's a. I don't know about you, but I'm a big believer in supporting the smaller independent bookstores. So I know everybody goes, yeah, but Amazon's got my info. I'll just go there. But I thought I'd try anyway. Store.bookbaby.com.
You got it. I'll make sure that's there as well. But mostly it's great to reconnect with you, and I look forward to next time I'm out in your neck of the woods to be able to maybe, hopefully connect and spend more time than meeting up at a networking party where we're kind of rushed around.
Oh my, you were so busy out here. You were just, did you love it? Was it good to be out in the desert? You were
It
here for a minute.
it was that was wrapping up a long LA trip I had, and so that wrapped it up, and then I went home. But being there, it was nice, especially to connect with everybody in Palm Springs.
And connecting with our very own, let's do a nice big shout out to our local Bradford and
Oh yeah,
K-Gay Radio and the Gay Desert Guide, because
yep.
he just does such an amazing job with all this. So big hats off to Bradford, just
Yeah,
by the
I,
way.
I spent some good quality time with him as well. So,
That was fun actually catching up with the two of you. You,
so
you had me on my toes and laughing, sir. I thank you for that.
I love it. Well, like I said, this has been great, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you. You too.
All
Thank you for
right.
the time.
So good.